Hello, hello, hello. Listen, today we are talking about your next season and what it should not look like. Let me repeat that. We are talking about your next season and what it should not look like. See, what we often do is we would think about our new season, our next season, our reset season, our refresh, restart, reboot season, right? Where we want to reinvigorate ourselves. We want to reinvent ourselves. We want to do something new. But what we refuse to do or often mistakenly do not do is we don't look back at what we did, right? Previously. We don't look at how maybe we mishandled our time, how we misused love. We don't look at how we misused and abused the money or the time that God gave us, right? And so it is really about looking back, reflecting on what you've done before you decide I'm going to move into a new season of relationship, a new season of love, a new season of better health, a new season of spirituality, right? Moving closer to God and better relationship with people. Whatever your reset season looks like, you have to look back so you don't move forward with the same habits, the same behaviors, and the same beliefs. I'm Rachel Harper. I am your behavior health and wellness specialist. Welcome to Changing the Face of Wellness podcast. Listen, if you have not already subscribed to this podcast, you are already behind. All right. We have already gotten into this is about episode 11, I think, or so, 10 or 11. And so if you haven't already listened to episodes 1 through 9 or whatever the first episodes were, you're already behind, right? So make sure that before you get into your next season, it's about changing how you see the relationship you have with yourself, changing the face of wellness. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, as we are looking at your new season, as you are looking at your new season, right? Let's think about John 10:10. I want to come from John 10:10. There are two halves of John 10:10. All right. There is the front half of John 10:10, and then there is the second half or the back half, what I like to call it, the back half, right? There is the front half, there's a warning, and then there's the back half of a promise. What do I mean? What is the definition of warning and promise? So, when we look at the definition of promise, it is a declaration or assurance that one would do a particular thing or that a particular thing will happen. That was a lot. Write that down. That means pause it. Make sure you got notes. Make sure you got pen and paper. Write that down. So I'm going to read that again. What is a promise? It is a declaration, or it is the assurance that one will do a particular thing, right? Someone gives you a promise. They say, I will do what I say I'm going to do, right? Or it is a particular thing that will happen. Okay, a promise that something will happen, an event will happen, a promise that something is going to come to pass, right? I think we all like promises, yes. And so we want to see something happen. We want that declaration. We want that assurance. We want that promise that something is going to happen. But then we move into the definition of warning. What is a warning? A warning is a statement or event that indicates a possible or impending danger, problem, or other unpleasant situation. So pause it, write that down, look it up. Let's do some work. All right. We're talking about moving into 2023. We got to do things different. So, what is warning? Again, it is a statement or an event. Somebody either said something or it is an event that indicates a possible or impending danger. Something is about to happen. All right. It is unpleasant. So when we look at John 10:10, promises and warnings, when we look at a promise, right, the front half of John 10:10 is not a promise, it is a warning. So the front half of John 10:10 says what? It says the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That is a warning. When you look at the second half of John 10:10, God says, I came so that you may have life and have life more what? More abundantly. That's a promise. I came just for that. So not only that you can have life, but so that you can live life abundant. So now let's look at the word abundant. What does abundance actually means? It means to have more than you need. So when I looked that up, that definition up, right? Overflow. It means to have more than you need. One of the things that I felt was this. I felt like I'm 37, but I feel like I've lived at least 30 years of my life feeling as though it was an expectation to not have overflow. It was an expectation. It was okay. It was the norm to have less than. It was the norm to live in scarcity. It was the norm to live in poverty. It was the norm to always have a need. It was the norm to always have an ask, meaning always needing to ask for something. That was the norm for at least the first 30 years of my life. And it wasn't until I moved from a place of scarcity to say enough was enough. And I left my old state, moved to Georgia. And when I moved to Georgia, my husband and I then began to make six figures because we said enough was enough. We were tired of living in poverty. We were tired of living in scarcity. We were tired of having less than. So when I see the word abundance, it doesn't just mean financial, right? If God says that He came so that I can have life and have life in abundance, I can guarantee you that doesn't just mean money. However, in this conversation, speaking of money, for some reason, that was the norm for the first 30 years of life. It was like always having an ask, always having a need, always needing something, always having to ask. And that was a problem as I have moved into a new place of abundance. But we got to be careful that when it comes to religion, that we're not allowing religion to overstep the boundaries or the understanding of scripture and what God is really saying. You understand what I'm saying? So the reason why I talk about that is because when my husband and I started to make six figures, it almost felt convicting at the fact that, you know, my children knew what nice cars look like because we lived here in Georgia, and it's normal to ride by $1 million neighborhoods. It's normal to see people in Corvettes. It's normal to see people in different expensive cars. And now that my children know what that looks like, now it's what does a profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? Well, who said we don't have a relationship with God just because we're making more money, right? And so we got to make sure that we understand that we're not doing that ourselves, because what happens when you get into a place where you're now making six figures, seven figures, multiple seven figures? Because guess what? I can guarantee you that's probably on your vision board for you to not live in lack, for you to not live in scarcity. And are you going to be saying that same scripture to yourself? Right. And so we got to be careful that we don't feel convicted about living in abundance. That's the point of that conversation. That's the point of that conversation. Because I felt convicted about making six figures and then saying, well, do I really have a relationship with God? Absolutely, I did. Right. And so we got to be careful with that. And so abundance, it means to have more than you need. God said you can have more than you need. To see God move, which pathway is right for you? Is it the pathway of promises, or is it the pathway of problems? Is it the pathway of wisdom, or is it the pathway of warnings? Is it the pathway where God directs you, or is it the pathway that you create and you direct yourself? So which one do you believe will lead you on a pathway to warnings? Will lead you on a pathway to danger? Will lead you on a pathway to being outside of abundance, right? Promises or problems, wisdom or warnings. God directs or you direct or you create. Which one? So it's about being on that pathway to abundance. So in order to reset and start fresh in 2023, or whatever your new season is going to be, right? We all have different seasons of our lives where we say we want to reset, we want to restart. It doesn't always have to be at the beginning of the year, right? New Year's resolution. It doesn't always have to be then. There's often different times in our lives where we say we want to restart, we want to reboot, we want to refresh, we want to do things new. Oftentimes it's after, let's say, for example, having a new baby. You might then say, oh man, I need to get back to myself. It might be after loss of a relationship, right? You might say, I got to get back to who I was, right? Or it might be when you hit a milestone, right? You might hit a new season. Maybe you retire. Maybe you hit 40 or 50, a new decade, right? It is often there that we start to think, I have to move into a new season of my life, right? And so to reset and start fresh, you must first renew your mind. You see, you cannot go into a new season with old beliefs, old habits, and old behaviors. I'm going to say that again. You cannot go into a new season with old habits, old beliefs, or old behaviors. If you are deciding that you want to finally get healthy, you want to lose weight, you want to drink more water, you want to start eating more vegetables, you want to start taking in less sugar, you have to think, what are the beliefs that I have that are not going to help me in my new season? Do I believe I can eat as many calories as I want and still lose weight? Do I believe I have to starve myself in order to lose weight? Do I believe that, I can just drink a bunch of juice and those empty calories won't affect me? Because then those beliefs are then going to affect your habits. So if you believe that you can just eat anything that you want on a health journey, then that's what your behaviors are going to show. Your beliefs are connected to your behaviors. If I see your behaviors, I guarantee you, I can tell you your beliefs. Let me say that again. Show me anybody's behaviors, and I can tell you their beliefs. So when I see your behaviors of what you got on your plate, I already know your beliefs. When I see how you're eating, I already know your beliefs. When I see how you are with love and in your relationship, I already know your beliefs. But not only do I know your behaviors, see your behaviors and then understand your beliefs, but I also know your habits. And so sometimes we're getting and so if you're one who says, I want to get into a better relationship or I want to find a new relationship or I want to just find love, right? Pay attention to people's behaviors, because then you will know their habits, you will know their beliefs, and then you really don't have to ask a lot of questions, right? You really don't. And so sometimes we're looking for answers and the answer is right in your face. So anyway, that's just a side note. That's just a side note. So to reset and start fresh in 2023, you must first renew your mind, right? You got to renew your mind first. So make a declaration. It's not enough to just live right. You have to live well. I'm going to say that again. I want you to make this declaration. It's not enough to just live right. You also have to live well. That is critical. That is crucial to your life. See, sometimes we make the mistake of believing, well, if I'm living right, that means I'm living well. If I'm living right, that's just enough. If I'm just following commandments and all right, then that's just cool. I could just sit in that. But then you're leaving a whole life of expectation of what God wants you to do. You're leaving it on the table, because only thing you know is that I'm just living well, I'm living complacent, I'm just living day by day. I'm cool. Right? But there's so much more that you're leaving on the table. You often make the mistake of believing that when it comes to living well, that only means that anybody is talking about the gym. They're only talking about eating better. They're only talking about nutrition. They're only talking about exercise. And because possibly you failed at it before, you don't even like the word well, to live well, wellness. You don't even like that word. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to change your idea, your mindset, your beliefs, your behaviors, your attitudes about the word well, living well. What does it mean to live well? What does it look like to live well? That means financially well. That means socially well. That means relationally well. That means well in a healthy manner, right? Physically well, nutritionally well. It is about holistic wellness. It is about all those pieces. And we often leave it on the table. I believe that is overflow. When God says you can have more than you desire, He said you can have more, abundance, more than you need. It is in all those areas. It is with your physical self, your relational self. It is with your intellect. It is with your spiritual self. It is with your emotional self. And so when you look at those 5 areas alone, many of those areas is going to then bring in that financial piece. Many of us are trying to chase money as our abundance, and that's incorrect. You don't have to chase money. God already said it's here for you. Shoot, He put gold here on the earth. You can go find gold and cash it in if you really wanted to, right? The money is already here, but you don't have enough of the money because you haven't taken advantage of your physical health. So you're too tired and too fatigued to go after your purpose. You haven't gone after your relational intelligence. You don't know how to be in relationship with people who could actually help you get to the next level. You haven't gone after your intellectual wellness. So you don't read any books, listen to any podcasts. All you do is watch junk TV all day. You haven't thought about investing in your spiritual wellness, your spiritual health, your spiritual intelligence. So you know nothing about God saying that you can live in abundance. And you haven't gone after your emotional healing. So every time something happens, you automatically blow up and you're dealing with stress, anxiety, fatigue, frustration, anger, bitterness, resentment. Right. And you're just sitting and waiting in that. And God is saying, John 10:10, listen, warning, warning, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Is that the pathway that you're on? I think you might be on that pathway. You might be on that pathway to still getting your emotions stolen, and they're hurting, and you're up and down, and your weight is up and down, and you're dealing with stress, anxiety, fatigue. You're dealing with the frustration with your physical self. You got the high blood pressure, and you're on borderline on a heart attack and a stroke. You don't know where your next exercise is going to come from. You automatically look at your physical self as it's too hard because you failed at it before. So you just automatically just giving up. So your weight is all over the place and your health is all over the place. And the doctor already told you to get the weight down from around your core, but you're just like, I don't know what to do. So you got these excuses. Right. So, and then your relational stuff, you just don't know what to do with yourself. Right. And so, what I'm trying to tell you is that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if you are on that pathway, that is what it's going to look like. Even with yourself, the relationship with yourself, your intellectual self, you don't know how to read a book. You don't know how to listen to a podcast. You don't even know how to listen to an audio book. You don't know how to go to the library, and you don't know how to do none of those things. You're not even trying to do those things. Your spiritual self, you haven't opened the Bible and who knows when. It's the pathway of lack. It's the pathway of scarcity. It's the pathway of poverty. It's the pathway of warning. It's the pathway of living in lease. It's the pathway that you should not be on. When God already said, take the pathway of abundance, take the pathway of promises, take the pathway where I'm going to hold your hand and guide you to better, to more, to overflow. Eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man all the things that God has. He said, all the things that I got planned for you. There's a plan already set up for you on that pathway to abundance, on that highway to more. But you got to be able to tap into it. You got to reset your mind. That's the first step. All right. And so, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being dissatisfied and 5 being extremely satisfied, I want you to rate yourself in these three categories. If 1 is dissatisfied and 5 is extremely satisfied, on a scale of 1 to 5, rate yourself in these following categories. So, the first category, happiness. How happy are you with where you are? Physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, intellectual self, spiritual self, financially. How happy are you in each of those areas? 1 to 5. 1 being you're extremely dissatisfied, and then 5 being I'm extremely satisfied. Because you're moving into a new season, you got to make sure you got the right goals, the right behaviors, the right habits, the right beliefs. So, how dissatisfied are you? It's time to evaluate. Are you dissatisfied? Are you okay? 5, I'm extremely satisfied. How happy are you? Here's a second category. How do you feel about your health? Are you satisfied? Dissatisfied? Maybe you're in the middle, you can do better. How would you rate your health? And then looking at the last category, the healing of your emotional and mental self. So that's your anxiety, your worry, your thoughts, your stress, the bitterness, your anger, your resentment, all the emotional pieces of you. How would you rate it? Are you satisfied or are you dissatisfied with it? You got to evaluate it. Why is it important to evaluate? Because again, we're going to look at 3 things. What is it? Your habits, your behaviors, and your beliefs. If you are declaring that you are going to walk the pathway to abundance or the pathway of abundance, you got to be able to reevaluate your life. You got to be honest. You got to understand it. You got to know where you've been so you don't end up there again. Right? If you want a replay of the lack, of the scarcity, of the poverty, of the struggle, they continue to have those same habits, behaviors, and beliefs. Keep at it. It's cool. Keep going with it. And so I just want to take to deep dive into one of those categories, the category of happiness. And the reason why I want to do that is because we seem to have gotten away from the basics of just happiness, right? What do I mean? So when we look at happiness, it means having a sense of confidence in or satisfaction with a person, arrangement, or a situation. That's the basics of happiness. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you confident with the people in your life, the arrangements in your life, and the situations in your life? That means your health, your relationships, your understanding, your wisdom, your intellect, your purpose, your calling, your impact, your influence. This is where also your income is going to be impacted. We often forget, oh, I want to move straight into joy. Well, before you can move into joy, how happy are you with where you are? Are you happy with your relationship? Are you happy with your health? Are you happy with your intellect, with your wisdom, with your purpose, with your impact, with your calling, with your influence? Are you happy in that? Are you happy with your emotional self, right? We look at Second Corinthians 10 and 5. It says, hold every single thought, negative thought cap, hold every thought captive that goes against the word of God. How are you doing in that area? Are you doing well there or not? Right? So the basics of happiness is just having a sense of confidence in or satisfaction with a person, arrangement, or situation. How confident are you about your health? Are you confident that you can lose the weight? Are you confident that you can start eating healthier? Are you confident that you can reduce your blood pressure? Are you confident that you can reduce your cholesterol? Are you confident that you can eat less sugar? Are you confident that you don't have to go on a diet, but you can just do a little bit more of exchanging some of that sugar, maybe for something else, right? Start taking in cinnamon instead of sugar. Start taking in, instead of ice cream, taking in yogurt. Are you confident that you can create a habit from that, right? So you got to be able to change your habits, your behaviors, but first it starts with your beliefs. So, how much confidence do you have in yourself? How much confidence do you have in your purpose? How much confidence do you have in your calling? How much confidence do you have in God? Here's the problem that we often run into: you have more confidence in your excuses than you have in God's promises. You have more confidence in your excuses than you have confidence in the abundance that God has said that He came so that you can have. He came all the way down here to make sure that you got life and had an in abundance and overflow, and so that you can have more than what you need. But yet you have confidence in your excuses. Typically, when it comes to your excuses, you're saying things like, I don't know, I don't have enough money, I've never seen it done, I'm afraid, I don't think I can do it. The excuse of I don't know, I don't have an answer. The excuse of how am I supposed to get it done? I'm getting too old. The confidence of it's too late. The confidence in the excuse of I've never seen it done. How is it supposed to happen? Be a pioneer. Be the first one. I don't have the money to make it happen. Find the money. Look at your couch. You got some money in your couch. Go outside. There's some money outside. There's money all around you. God said He came so that you can have abundance. Guess what? There's an abundance in your couch. There's an abundance of money in your couch. So collect that money and put it inside of a shoebox. Stop having confidence in I don't know. Stop having confidence in maybe. Stop having confidence in no. Stop having confidence in fear. Stop having confidence in being afraid. Stop having confidence in this is what I'm used to. Stop having confidence in this is just who I am. Stop having confidence in that. We got more confidence in our excuses than we have confidence in the promises of what God said you can have. That's a problem. Here's your principle. I want you to state this. I can't have overflow until I put my purpose in the proper position. I can't have overflow until I put my purpose in the proper position. Here's the mistake we make when it comes to purpose. We often think our purpose is attached to a job We think our purpose is only attached to a job, is only attached to a career. I have more than one purpose. I have the purpose of being a mother in this season. I have a purpose of being a wife in this season. I have the purpose of being an entrepreneur and a teacher in this season, right? I have the purpose of being a coach in this season. I have the purpose of being a behavioral health and wellness specialist in this season. I have the purpose of making sure my health is in order in this season. I have the purpose of making sure my money is in order in this season. So, what is your purpose? We forget that we have more than one. You have more than one purpose. The problem is you're so focused of trying to get the purpose of money that you're forgetting all the other areas of your life that can bring it in. See, your purpose, your influence, your impact is going to affect your income. If you got to walk to God's abundance, then walk. If you can run, then run. But you got to be able to take the first step, change your mind, change your beliefs, so that then your habits will change. Yes? I want you to say this principle as well. I won't see overflow until I can have confidence in my creator. You got to have confidence in your creator. Oftentimes, what we do is we'll sit on the throne and we'll have confidence in ourselves. Here's a problem with that. You already don't have confidence in yourself. So the minute you try to rely on yourself, you're already going to fail. You're going to feel like it's not going to work. You're going to have doubt. You're going to have disbelief. It's because you already don't have confidence in you. So when it comes to your health, you've currently obtained in your life, I want you to think about how much confidence do you have in your health? That means the functions of your organs, the functions of your bones, your tissues, your ligaments, your joints, your cells. What can you do to gain more confidence in that area? What can you do to gain more healing of your emotional and mental categories of your life? The stress, the anxiety, the fatigue, the frustration, the anger, the bitterness that you've been dealing with for so long. Once you gain more confidence in that area, you'll then be able to live in overflow. I don't think nobody is going into a new season or into a new year saying, God, just give me just enough. God, I don't want enough. No, I want to live in overflow. That's my prayer. God, give me overflow. But then I want you to understand that when it comes to faith, guess what? All this stuff that I'm talking about comes with what? It comes with works. You got to do the work. You got to sacrifice in some seasons. You might have to sacrifice the foods that you're eating. You might have to sacrifice some of the time that you're doing to watch TV and instead use that time to read a book, to listen to a podcast. Sacrifice might be necessary in your next season. So the mistake you often make is believing that the contentment you have means you are living well. So what does it mean to live well? That means physically, relationally, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, financially. All right. How are you living well in those areas? Don't make the mistake of believing that when you hear the word wellness, and maybe there are some other people out there that when they talk about wellness, they're only talking about one thing. But listen, when you come here, I'm not just talking, that's why I call it changing the face of wellness. I'm not just talking about one thing. I'm not just talking about getting on a treadmill. That's low hanging fruit. You already know to go and exercise. You already know to go for a walk. You already know those things. I don't have to explain that. But that's why we're talking about changing the face of wellness. What does it look like for you to live well physically, relationally, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, financially? What does it look like to live well in all of those areas of your life? Stop being content with everything. If you are not living in a place of happiness, if you're not in the basic happiness, you're trying to catch joy. Well, what about happiness? If you're not living in a basic season of happiness in any of those categories of your life, I want you to stop saying you're content. And I want you to find out maybe you are just content with your excuses. It's time to reset. What are those excuses? Write down those excuses that is stopping you from living in overflow, from living in abundance. What are those excuses? Okay. Now, when you talk about content, content means satisfied, pleased, untroubled, unworried, at ease, comfortable, complacent. Stop being complacent with everything in your life. You're complacent with toxic relationships. You're complacent with bad health. You're complacent with not getting better and gaining wisdom. You're complacent with the relationship you have with God. You're complacent with your emotional self. You're sitting in stress, anxiety, fatigue, frustration, and you cool with it. Stop being complacent about everything that's happening in your life. But God is saying, I came so that you can live in abundance. I came so that you can have overflow. I came so that you can have more. If he left you with that promise, why are you not taking him up on that promise? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're living in excuses. That's what you're doing. You got to stop with the excuses, right? The excuses of because you've never seen anybody in your family break the generational curse of poverty, that has to be my portion. No, it doesn't. Do something different. Be the pioneer. See, when you don't step out and decide that I'm going to change my face of wellness, my well-being, my impact, my influence, my purpose, if I don't walk in my happiness, if I don't get better with the different areas of my life, then there's somebody who's attached to you who's waiting on you to show up in a better place with better health, more energy to do your purpose. There's somebody else who's waiting on you to show up and do more. There's somebody who's waiting on you to stop living in a place of lack, in a place of scarcity, because they need to hear a word from you. But every time you sit back in fear and shame and regret and doubt and complacency, and I'm just cool with where I am and living in scarcity and lacking and having less than and living beneath my potential, somebody else can't get what they need. There's somebody attached to you who you don't know who is waiting on you to show up, who is waiting on you to break through, who's waiting on you to have a blessing to say, I'm ready, God. They're waiting on you. And until you get to that new season, somebody else won't get what they need, whether that's your children, your husband, a significant other, somebody you'll meet 10 years down the line, somebody you'll meet in the next 20 minutes, somebody you'll meet tomorrow. They need you to get into the books. They need you to get into better health. They need you to get into better relationship with God. They need you to settle that emotional bitterness, that anger, that stress, that fatigue, that frustration. Somebody's waiting on you. Somebody's waiting on you, right? You know, every time you explain your life away, you're having yet another conversation with God, telling him that he's not capable. Let me repeat that. Every time you explain your life away with excuses of I'm too old, I don't know if I can, I've already felt at this before, how am I supposed to do it again? I'm the first one in my family, I've never seen it done before, I don't have enough money, I've already been mistreated, this is just who I am. I must not be good enough, I must not look good enough, I must not sound the part, I'm too afraid. I don't think it can be done. I don't have enough money to do it. Every time you sit in an excuse and explain your life away, you're having yet another conversation with God, telling him that he's not capable. You're having another conversation with God, telling him that he's inadequate. You're having another conversation with God, telling him no, he's not enough. His promises, they're not enough. I want you to remember that. What does it look like to actually begin living well? So there's two criteria I want you to begin fulfilling. Two criteria. Criteria number one, fulfilling your human potential means it is sustainable. The health that you have right now, is it sustainable? The high blood pressure, is it sustainable? That means it's able to be maintained at a certain rate or level, or it improves the quality of your life. The high blood pressure. So I ask you again, is your high blood pressure improving your quality of life? Is your fear of stepping out improving your quality of life? Is your contentment of being in a toxic relationship improving your quality of life? Is your, lack of spending God's time wisely, watching stuff that's not going to help you put more money in your pocket, is that improving your quality of life? Is it? Answer that question. Is it sustainable? Is the stress that you say is just me, it's just who I am, I just got to deal with it? You haven't gone to therapy. You haven't tried to get a coach. You haven't tried to figure out how you can get better. You haven't invested in a self-help book. You haven't invested in yourself. Is that improving your quality of life? And the last criteria is what you're going through in your physical health, your relationships, your intellectual wisdom, your intellectual self, your spiritual health, your emotional self, financially. Is it personally satisfying? That means, is it fulfilling? Is it pleasing, or is it pleasant? Is your physical health personally satisfying? Is it fulfilling? Is it pleasing? Is it pleasant? What about your relationship? Is it personally satisfying? Your intellectual self, is it personally satisfying? Is it fulfilled? Are you being fulfilled intellectually? What about spiritually? Are you spiritually fulfilled? Are you emotionally fulfilled? And so when you evaluate those areas of your life, I want you to get an understanding. Listen, look at that criteria. Is it sustainable, and is it personally satisfying? That means, does it check both of those boxes? Because if it don't, you probably need to make sure you're putting in the work. You're sacrificing, possibly. You are, investing in yourself. You are putting in the work. It says faith without works is what? It's like a person without a person without a spirit is dead. All right. So you got to do the work. Begin living in abundance. Why are you not allowing yourself to live in abundance? Why is it okay to live in lack? Why do you think it's okay to live in less? Why do you think it's okay to not have more? Why do you think it's not okay to have overflow? John 10:10. It's because you're on the pathway where the enemy is stealing, killing, and destroying your beliefs, destroying your habits, destroying the behaviors that can actually put you on the pathway to abundance. And so, where can you begin to do the work necessary to get towards the pathway to abundance? Self love. Self love. The minute you believe that you can have more, is the minute that the doors can open for you to get all that God said He has for you. The minute you believe you're worth it, the minute you believe your excuses are not worth it, the minute you believe that you should have more, the minute you believe that you are deserving of more, the minute that you believe that more and abundance is your birthright, you'll then be able to walk in exactly what God says that you can have. It'll then start. It'll begin. The doors will open, but you cannot walk in incomplete faith. You got to have complete faith. What is complete faith? That is having faith, but also having the works. So if you enjoyed this lesson, listen, I want you to come and get more. I have a 2-hour masterclass that is coming up. It is going to be at rachelharper.org/masterclass. It is a 2-hour class where I'm going to talk more about the pathway to abundance. Not only am I going to talk about the pathway to abundance, but I'm going to give you some exercises that you can do to begin to walk in self-love, to begin to walk in a place where your beliefs, your habits, and your behaviors can get on that pathway to abundance so that you can get out of that place of scarcity, out of that place of lack, out of that place of poverty, that poverty mindset, that poverty belief, and you're being poverty stricken just every area of your life. It's time to get out of that place of poverty and into that place of abundance. And so if you are ready to do that, if you believe you are deserving of it, if you believe it is your birthright, I want you to meet me in the masterclass this month. Go to rachelharper.org/masterclass. Make sure you meet me there. All right. So go ahead and subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, listen, you already behind. Subscribe to this podcast. And what else? Subscribe, share, because you're a good friend. So make sure you are sharing this podcast as well. And let's do this. Listen, it's time to be new. It's time to move into a new place. It's time to do better. It's time to do new. It's time to move to the pathway of abundance. All right. So I will see you in the next episode.